So many of you probably have never heard me speak before. I know there's several of you that do follow me on Facebook. So my name is Brittney and my passion in life and in this world is to help free people out of the toxic agenda that is keeping us all stuck, unhealthy, sick, overwhelmed, all the things that Jeff's teaching you today, but understanding what's behind the black curtain. And so what I mean by that are uncovering things in the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry that are keeping us back. So how many of you want to raise your vibrational frequency like Jeff's been teaching today? Okay, and how many of you would agree that what we put in and on our bodies is important to changing that? Would you agree that's important? So I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the fact that our food is really toxic in this day and age. I think that's pretty common, especially here in California, that people are aware. They're aware of what GMOs are. Is there anyone in the room that does not know what a GMO is? Awesome. So this might be a different situation if we were in the Midwest or in a different part of the country. A lot of people still don't, they're not quite as aware, but it's become a huge movement. So that was really what started me on my journey in the health and wellness field, was uncovering what was going on with our food system. About 10 years ago, I started to really research the ins and outs of what was going in our food, on our food, and it just led me down this whole path of everything from, secret things in the government with our finances to the pharmaceutical industry. And so what I wanted to do was, at the time I was pregnant with my oldest, who's now about to be 8, and I just was really angry. How many of you are parents in the room? Okay, a lot of the room is parents. So I was just really angry that my child had to come into a world that was so polluted. Can you guys relate to that? And so I wanted to change that, and I wanted to inspire other parents and other people to step out of that agenda. And what I found over the years was everybody wants that, right? Everybody wants to be healthy, they want to feel good, and they want to feel empowered in their life. I think every human being wants that, but so many people are stuck. And so what I wanted to do was create a system and a guidebook to help people understand, if you don't know what's oppressing you, then how can you release it, right? And that's a lot of the things that Jeff teaches, is being aware, consciously aware of what we're changing or what we need to change. And so I wrote a guidebook that had to do with those things. And so there, on the cover is GMOs. This book is not all about GMOs. There's a small part of it that is, but I talk about the things that you are cleaning your, floors with, or what's in your dishwasher, what's in vaccines. How many of you are aware of what's happening in this state with the vaccine issues? Anybody following that? Okay, So Jeff does let me speak on that. I appreciate that, because it is a very controversial subject, and people shut down and talk about getting uncomfortable, like we've been talking about today. We start to talk about vaccines and people get very uncomfortable. So about a year ago, I got really involved with that movement, because laws were being passed in this state that were going to take my children's right to a free and public education away from them, because we do not believe that vaccines are the way for our family to be healthy. And over 10 years of research, I have learned that the vaccines that are currently on the market are not anything that I would want to inject into my children. And so that brings up a lot of emotions for people, and there's a lot of people that are against it, there's a lot of people that are for it. And I'm not here to convince you of anything. My goal is to inspire people to start to ask questions. Because at the end of the day, you guys, if what we were doing was working with our food, with our healthcare, with our finance system, we would not have the level of sickness, disease, debt, and the American populace would not be where they are today. Do you guys agree with that? There's a massive problem. Thank you, Jeff. There's a massive problem, and my goal is to help people get out of that. And so my book does go into that. It's your first little look into that world, and then you can start to uncover more and more truth. You can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want, and there are multiple rabbit holes to fall down. Trust me, I've been down most of them, and it does change you. But what I always tell people when I'm coaching them is that if you're not aware of what is keeping you stuck, then you can't release it. And that's the first step. So maybe you just want to learn more about the food industry. Maybe you kind of know what a GMO is, but you want to be more proactive about when you go to the grocery store, you're voting with your dollars. And right now there's a lot of politics happening in the media. We have a big presidential election coming up this year, right? But every single time we go anywhere, you guys, we vote. We vote for crap that's killing us and making us sick, or we vote for healthy things that are going to heal our body and make our bodies and minds better. How many of you have had someone in your life that you lost to cancer? Raise your hand. Okay, quite a few people. So one of the things that's really important to me is uncovering injustices in the cancer industry, because the cancer industry is just like any other industry, and it is for profit. And the average human being that gets cancer, does anyone know how much that person is worth to the cancer industry?
No.
$2 million per head. Okay, so there is not an urgency to cure cancer in this country. Cancer has been curable for decades, centuries. If you go back and you look at homeopathy and herbal remedies, there's been all sorts of doctors and scientists that have cured cancer. But what happened to them is their knowledge was stifled. They, a lot of times, ended up dead. And it's a very, very unfortunate process. And a lot of this might seem really Debbie Downer. I can see that, like, the rooms, like, the energy is like, but if you're not aware, then you're going to become a statistic. And so my goal is to help you move out of that so that you don't have to be a statistic. And for your children, raise your hand again if you have kids or grandkids or children that you care about in your life, nieces, nephews, doesn't matter. Kids we have the sickest generation of children ever recorded in our history. And if you look at when that started, a lot of that started to shift in the mid-90s when the vaccination schedule was increased. For those of you in this room that are either my age or older, we got a total, when I was a kid, we got a total of 8 vaccines. If you're older than me, you got even less, maybe 4 or 5. Some people maybe even 2 or 3. How many vaccines does a child receive today? Does anyone know? In their first year of life. Does anyone know? 36 in the first year of life, 49 by the time they're 5. By the time a child is 18, they've received 73 shots. Okay, that schedule has never been tested. It's never been proven safe to inject that many chemicals into a growing immune system, and it's something that I am deeply, deeply affected by. I actually go to sleep thinking about it. I wake up in the morning thinking about it. How do I change this? How do I empower people to start to ask, okay, wait a second, if we know that formaldehyde and aluminum and polysorbate 80 and GMOs are bad, then why are we injecting those things into the bloodstream of an infant? Those are all ingredients that are found in vaccines, and if you don't believe me, you can go on the CDC website and you can pull up the list of ingredients and it will show you right there. And some of the most toxic chemicals known to human beings are contained in those pharmaceuticals. That's one avenue of toxicity. Then they're gonna go through a drive-thru at McDonald's, they're gonna eat their Burger King, they're gonna have their soda, and they're also gonna be put on ADHD medication to balance their brain because they can't function. They're so far outside their body. So is that okay with anyone in this room? No. Okay. So I want to change that as part of my mission, and a lot of families follow me for advice and for ways to opt out of the system, but it really comes down to each one of us. And what I want to empower with you guys today is maybe you don't have young kids and the vaccine issue isn't a big deal, but we all eat, breathe, and have skin. All of us do, and we're all affected by what's happening. Whether you think it's affecting you or not, it's like gravity. It's there. So the more we can become aware as a culture, and the more we can start to just go, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to look at what's in my deodorant. I'm going to just look, and the first ingredient is aluminum. Now, aluminum is linked to breast cancer, but this company is then promoting breast cancer awareness, but it's the first ingredient in their product. That is weird. I'm going to look at that. Maybe I shouldn't be putting that in my armpit 2 times a day, right, ladies and gentlemen? Can you relate to that? So it's just being aware and shifting. A lot of things that Jeff teaches and any personal development teacher teaches is things that you didn't learn in high school, college, right? It's outside of the norm. And why do we want to be outside of the norm? We want to be different, right? We want to be extraordinary. We want to take our life to the next level. And you can't do that when your body is filled with toxins, when your brain is controlled by pharmaceuticals, and you can't do that when you're not thinking for yourself. So how many times do you watch TV and you see a drug commercial? About every 5 seconds, right? And the list of things, it's like, oh, do you suffer from headaches or toenail fungus or some bizarre thing? And then they list all of the other things that you're gonna get when you take this drug. But people will sit there, they'll look at that, and they'll walk into their doctor and they'll ask for a script. Because you see, doctors aren't bad people. I believe in medicine, I believe in the practice of being a doctor, but doctors are controlled by Big Pharma. And all of their continuing education it's funded by the pharmaceutical companies, and they're under huge pressure to sell a certain amount of scripts and this and that. So when you go to a normal MD, how many times do they talk to you about your emotional well-being? What happened to you when you were a child? Or how much water you're drinking, or when's the last time you cleansed your body? For the most part, an MD is not gonna ask you those things. They're not taught that, right? They're gonna talk to you about 5 seconds, what's hurting you, okay, here's a script, and they're gonna walk out of the room. So it's really, really, really important for us to, if we don't want to be a statistic and we don't want to have our kids grow up in an environment that continues to be toxic, it's important for us to wake up. And so that's why I wrote this book, and it is a very good starting point for people that maybe some of that sounded a little bit conspiracy theory to you, and you're like, I don't really know what she's talking about. That's okay. I was there one time too. I don't think anyone starts off being, anti-government, anti-vaccine. It's a journey, right? It's a journey, and the more you learn, the more you want to change the system. So I kind of walk you through step by step what led me down the path, and I'll just give you a little bit of background. When I was 13, I was a drug addict. By the time I was 14, I was consuming multiple things that should have never gone into my body. Every single day I had to get high on something, and by 16 I almost overdosed and died at a rave. And so I made a promise to myself while I was curled up in a ball and my body was shutting down, that if God saved me and healed my body, that I would never put drugs or substances in my body again, and I would spend the rest of my life teaching people how to not be toxic. And I kept that promise, and I got sober the next day. I didn't go to rehab. I just made the decision, and I got clean and sober and let drugs go, and went on to do this work in the world. So no matter what you're dealing with, whether it's you have chronic headaches, or you're just lethargic and you don't really know why, or maybe you have a family history of diabetes and cancer, and you want to look into that, you don't have to become a statistic, you guys. You really, really can rise above it. And it's something that really is so deep in my core that I just want all of you to think of one thing in your life that you could shift or you could detox. Just one thing. I want everyone to think of one thing right now. So maybe it's your cleaning products that you use in your dishwasher. And you're like, gosh, I don't really even know what's in that, Brittney, I have no idea. Or maybe it's you don't buy organic foods, you buy conventional foods because it's cheaper, because you can't afford to buy organic, okay? Maybe it's that. Maybe it is the vaccine issue. Maybe it's you wanted to get a flu shot this year and you didn't because you saw something on Facebook that made you think about, flu shots are linked to Alzheimer's. Maybe I'll do some research on that and look into it. Whatever that looks like for you, I just would encourage you to continue on that path, because what you don't know is literally killing you. And I don't say that to be morbid, I say that in reality because we're seeing it every single day in our culture. So that's a little bit about my story and about my work. And for those of you that do have young children and you are looking for more answers, or you are affected by some of the laws that are going into place, I do post a lot of information on Facebook about that. So you can always follow me on Facebook, and you can connect with me after if you have individual questions. And I just want to thank Jeff again for having me up here. He's always it's such a privilege to be here and to be able to speak to a room and hopefully just inspire one person to do something a little bit differently in their life that's going to take them to the next level. So my book is for sale in the back. It is $20. And also, if you are in a health and wellness company called Isagenix, this is a great marketing tool for your team. I have a whole chapter in here about Isagenix and what it did during my pregnancy for my health. So it's something that I share with not only my team, but multiple teams. So it's a great resource for people that, especially if you have a team of moms and people that are looking to use the products during pregnancy and after, it's a great resource. So I definitely want to connect with you guys and answer your questions. And thank you, Jeff, so much for having me up here.